Hi, everybody. Ian Bremmer here, and it's late, and we have all just finished watching the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Quite likely the only presidential debate we're going to see between them before November elections, and very clearly Harris was the winner. It wasn't as dramatic as the Biden-Trump debate, but it was nonetheless pretty one-sided. Harris made very few mistakes. She was on message. She was disciplined. She focused on policy. She oriented questions towards topics that she wanted to discuss, and she landed punches against Trump and his unfitness in areas that she felt comfortable, whether it was on abortion, whether it was on the economy, whether it was on international issues or on democracy. And it's not that Trump didn't have points to make, but he largely didn't make them. The only significant time that I saw a misstep that Trump was able to hit against Kamala was when she was complaining about his tariffs against China and more broadly. And of course, these were policies that Trump put in place that Biden stuck with and claims he's successful in China. And they were Trump policies. He said, well, if you wanted to change them, why didn't you? And through the debate, his message was, well, if there are all these great things you want to do, you've been vice president, why haven't you done them over the last 3.5 years? But on balance, what Trump did was lose message, lose discipline, and attack Kamala Harris in ways that seemed incoherent and all over the map. From the opening question when he was asked about the economy and couldn't stay on target on the economy, instead immediately started talking about immigration. When he threw in this nonsensical and false claim that immigrants, Haitian immigrants in Ohio are eating household pets. When he was asked about foreign policy and said, I'm loved around the world, and used Hungary's Viktor Orban as his respected character witness. On and on, he seemed defensive and angry and not on message and not disciplined, and was rattled by the fact that Kamala Harris was landing punches against him. I don't think she was fantastic, but she was good. And good is a significant accomplishment given the fact that coming into this, she was not taking interviews. One exception over the last 6 weeks with the media, certainly nothing that was confrontational or hostile, that she's frequently spoken in abstractions and generalities and not shown policy chops on a range of issues with depth and detail, that she frequently laughs a lot, sort of out of timing and in ways that seems not to make sense and at a defensiveness. None of that happened this evening. Today, Harris was responding coherently, not always with every fact at her fingertips, but certainly seemed to be a normal politician with a message to put across, was particularly strong on issues like abortion, where she has that capacity, and on pieces of economic policy, also in being able to land blows against Trump and his unfitness, inconsistency, lack of support for democracy, other related issues. Now, ABC is going to come into the crosshairs here, because certainly the questions that they asked and the follow-ups were more hostile towards Trump than they were towards Harris. Would you say that they were biased against Trump? Well, I would say that they were more focused on fact-finding, and Trump more frequently than Harris, and more frequently than any politician at that level, is making up his own facts. And they were doing a fair amount of fact-checking in real time. I would say there was a little bit of bias in the sense that there were a couple places they could have been fact-checking Kamala Harris, and they didn't. And I think they could have done a better job of that. I also think that they gave Trump much more time to follow up when he wanted to, and they typically cut off Harris at the end of her time. You could say that that's bias in favor of Trump, except it didn't help Trump. It actually hurt Trump because the longer he was speaking, the more rattled and unhinged he appeared to be. So I'd certainly say if you were looking at this debate in terms of who you thought actually came across as a winner and you had uncertainty as a potential voter, in the way that Biden-Trump would have been 95% Trump, Harris-Trump would be 80% Harris. Now, if you're a partisan on the Harris or Trump side, it didn't matter what was going to happen, and you're going to say that your side won no matter what. If you're trying to defend Trump tomorrow on air, you're going to say this was 3-on-1, this was an ABC dogpile, they're the fake news, they should be shut down. And I suspect Trump will be saying that, both directly and with his proxies tomorrow. But the fact is, he did not perform. And he is a 78-year-old man. He has not been particularly on point or on message in lots of his rallies recently, if you've watched them, or at the Economics Club in New York last week, if you watched that speech. He has vulnerabilities, and Kamala Harris, who had not been tested at this level before. This is, a presidential debate. She's the nominee. It's the biggest spot of her life, and she gave the best performance of her vice presidency, in my view. Was she, Obama in terms of masterful and soaring rhetoric? No. Was she Reagan? Same? No. But was she capable of sounding presidential, sounding like a leader, and thumping Trump pretty hard? Absolutely, yes. I think that this is an incredibly tight race. It's essentially a coin flip. I think this will probably give Harris a little bit more momentum that had tapped out after the convention. But it's probably not going to move her 2 or 3 points. It might move her half a point or a point. It's very, very tight. And I still think this election is very much open over the next couple months. But Harris did herself significant favors. Trump did himself none over the last couple of hours. And that's the news going into tomorrow. That's my view. Best I can do. You can disagree with it. But, I at least try to tell you what I think is going on honestly. And I'll talk to y'all real soon.